Hi everyone, welcome to this new quite short tutorial where I'm going to show you how you can easily paint, add texture to your character's face or any other mesh you are using. So this tutorial is going to be in two parts. The first part is going to be about the vertex paint mode that you can use when you have a sculpted mesh and you want to just easily paint on it without having to do retopology and UV unwrapped. But the second method is going to be about how to add materials, texture, details to a character where you have already done retopology and UV unwrap. So to sum it up, if you are looking for a quick way to paint a sculpted mesh because you are doing it just for fun or just for practicing, then this first part of the video is for you. But if you are creating a character and you maybe want to use it in like another software, or you maybe want to animate it or whatever, then the second part of the video is for you. Okay, enough talking, let's get into it. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using the sculpted face I've made on a previous tutorial. So for this first method, like I said, it's very useful when you have sculpted something and you don't want to spend time during retopology or UV unwrap because, like I said, it's just for fun or it's just for practicing and you want to make it quite fast. So let me show you how this works. The whole point of this is that we are going to use the vertex paint mode. And let me show you first in the data property. As you can see on my head, if I'm going into the color attribute, it has nothing. But if I'm going into the vertex paint mode here, or you can also going from there, then you can see that it has automatically added like a layer in the color attributes. So we can name this layer, skin texture, for example. And now if I want to paint on this face directly, let's say that I'm choosing color for the skin. I'm adding color all over my face and I'm happy with this skin color. But as you can see, if I'm switching to the render mode, the color we have just added doesn't show. And that's because we haven't linked the skin texture that we have just added to the material. So for that, we are going into our material right here, and we're going to add a new material. Let's also name it skin texture. And then we're going to open a new tab. Going to go on the corner, click and drag, and we're going to grab the shader editor. From there, since we have added in the data property, if you remember, a skin texture in the color attribute, we simply need to add in the add menu, so Shift A, a color attribute. It's really that simple. And in this color attribute, we're going to take the skin texture that we have just added. It's right there. And we're going to link it to the principal BSDF. And it's as simple as that. And let's say that maybe I want to add some details. Like I could do everything on one layer, that would totally work. But let's say that maybe I want to add makeup, I want to add freckles, I want to add scars, whatever. What I can do is actually add another layer right here. So I'm click on the plus. And one thing that is really important is that we need to drop the alpha, to decrease the alpha to 0. I'm going to name it like makeup texture, just so I don't get lost between all of my layers. And then, as you can see, it has been added in the color attribute. And what we can do now is we can duplicate the color attribute, so Shift D. I'm going to choose makeup texture. And if I want to link it to the principal BSDF right now, it's not going to work because you can only link one thing to the principal BSDF base color. So for that, we're going to add a mix color to mix the two colors that we have added. And the makeup one, we are going to link it to the B, and we're going to change mix for multiply. And right now you don't see any changes because we haven't added anything to the makeup texture. But if we go into the vertex paint tab, and I'm choosing like maybe a soft pink for the cheeks, for example, then I can add some colors. You can even do it in this tab so it's not that laggy. I can just add color to my face. Make sure also you have the symmetry on so your makeup have symmetry, unless you don't want symmetry in what you are creating. Then we could also maybe add some freckles right here. Just like that. You can really do whatever you want, and then you can just blur everything. And let's say that you don't want to use this makeup anymore, then you just have to unlink it, and boom, it disappeared, and it has kept the skin texture, the base skin texture we have added before. Then one last thing I often do when I'm creating character is that I like to add some shininess to the face, like most of the time on the lips, on the eyelid, and a bit on the nose and the cheekbones, where most of the time faces have natural shininess. So for that, I'm again going to add another layer in the color attribute, and I'm going to name it roughness. And don't forget to increase the alpha to 1, and we're going to keep the white color. So I'm clicking on add. Then just like we did earlier, I'm going to take a color attribute, doesn't matter which one, because we are changing the layer and we are choosing roughness. And this roughness, we are going to link it to the roughness of the principal BSDF. And as you can see, it made everything look very flat and matte. So for that, what we're going to do is that we're going to go into the vertex paint mode. So I'm choosing a black color because the roughness color was white. So to have contrast, I'm choosing a black color. And now I just can add shininess wherever I want on my face. And you can even like decrease the strength if you want it to be like maybe more subtle. And that's basically it. It's very simple. It's a very efficient way if you just want to add a little bit of texture and a little bit of color to your character without having to do retopology. Now let's move on to the second part. So for that, I'm going to be using the same edge, but that have retopology on. As you can see, my retopology is done. It's pretty clean. So now if I want to add colors and the texture to this face, I could try to use this method as we did just before. But since we don't have enough vertices and enough geometry, the result won't look good at all, because the first method relies a lot on how dense your mesh is. And here, since we have done retopology in order to make our mesh lighter, then it will be impossible to use this method, which means that we need to UV unwrap it. And if you have never UV unwrapped a mesh, or that you find it still quite complicated, let me just explain to you how it works. So right now, if I want it to add texture to my face, I will need to have an image on which I can paint on. So for that, we need to UV unwrap it. If I try to unwrap my mesh or here my face, let's just show you how it will look, then we might end up with a result that is a bit strange and where you have bad deformation. If you have watched my previous video, you know that to have those color that help you to know if your mesh is stretched in a weird way, you're going into this little tab right here, and you are checking the UV stretch angle. It just helps you to know if your mesh have real deformation or not. So to avoid that, we need to add seams. And for the face, most of the time, what I do is that I start by cutting it to the neck until there. And then on the back, we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to the forehead, so maybe until here. And I'm going to do 2 lines here and here, just so it's a little bit flat when I'm unwrapping it. And now we can press U and press mark seam. And as you can see, the vertices that we have previously selected are now in red. And if I select the whole thing with A and I'm UV unwrap it, minimal stretch, you can see that it's already way better and it's going to help us have a nicer result when we will be painting on it. Now, to just make my life easier, I'm just going to rotate it so it's facing in the right direction. And now that we have this space, we're going to be adding a material. Also, if you want your UV to stay on even when you are not clicking on it, then you need to select everything and press on this little arrow. And now, even if not selecting, the UV is staying on. Okay, so now let's add a new texture. So let's call it whatever you want. Face, skin texture, for example. And then we're going to, just like we did earlier on the first tutorial, we're going to open a new tab right here. I just click and drop to add the shader editor. And now in the shader editor, I'm going to first add an image texture, and then I'm pressing Ctrl T to have the texture coordinate and the mapping that are automatically added. Then I'm going to link the image texture to the base color. Now what we want is to create the image on which we are going to paint on. So for that we're going to click on new. So let's call it face, skin, texture. And to have a very nice resolution, I suggest you multiply it by either 2 or 4. And now we can already choose like skin tone for our character. And now we can add a new image. Where we want to go now is to go into the texture paint tab. And as you can see, the color we have chosen on the image texture is already applied. And we also have it on our character. Don't forget to go on image and to save it, because otherwise everything that you have painted on your image texture won't be saved and you would have to start over again everything that you have did if you have painted on it. And you have to remember, every time you add something to this texture, you have to save it right after, because Blender doesn't save it automatically. Okay, so now you can either use your mouse to draw on your face, but I personally like to make my texture with my XP Pen tablet. If you follow me on my other social media, you know that I've been using XP Pen from a long time. I used to have a small pink tablet that I loved so much, but recently XP Pen kindly sent me this new tablet that is so great. I just love it. They don't pay me to talk about it, but I just really do love it. And people often ask me if I use a drawing tablet. Yes, I do. I use an XP Pen one. And if you actually consider getting one, you can click on the link below and buy it with my code. So I have a little commission and it helped me support my work. So thank you in advance. And now that we are here, it's basically the same thing that the first method. We can literally paint everything that we want on this mesh. Like if I want to add some color to the cheeks. Oh, and as you can see, I didn't turn the symmetry on, so let's turn it on. Then we can also add maybe some lip color right here. When you are texture painting, I suggest you 2 things. First is to have already a color palette that you want to use. I find it very useful because I already know what kind of mood my mesh is going to have. And also one thing that is very useful is that when you are going into the tool menu, here you have a color palette. You can create a new one, like maybe palette face, so I know that is related to my face. Every time I have a color that I like and that I know that I'm going to reuse, I can add it to my color palette. And as you can see, if I go into image, I click on save. And if I go to the render viewport, my texture is added. Then if I want to add more details on top, because I don't want to move anything that I have done on this texture, then just like we did on the first part of this video, we're going to add more layer. So for that, let me show again the shader editor. I'm just going to take everything right here. I'm going to duplicate it, add a mix color shader. And here I'm deleting the face skin texture to add a new one that we're going to call, let's say, makeup texture. As we did earlier, important, we need to set the alpha to 0 so we have a transparent background. I'm creating a new image, linking it to the B of the mix color, the skin texture, connecting it to the A, and the mix color to the principal BSDF. Here I need to go on multiply. Also going to link the alpha to the factor of the multiply. And now we can add freckles wherever we want on our face. Like you really can do whatever you want. You can also maybe, let's say, a pink eyeshadow. I'm adding it. But let's say that maybe I want to use another color. Then what is great with using a transparent background is that I can just go into here in the blending mode menu here, and I'm going to choose erase alpha, and I can just erase what I've done without erasing the skin color that I have behind. And just like the face skin texture, don't forget to save your makeup texture, because if you don't see it applying to your face, most of the time it's because you haven't saved your image texture. Then if you want to add a bit of irregularity and texture to your face, what we can do is to add a noise node. So for that, we're going to add a noise texture node, pressing Ctrl T to have the mapping and the texture coordinate. We're going to add a color ramp, a bump, and this bump we're going to link it to the normals, the noise texture to the color ramp, and the color ramp to the height. So at first we're going to have this weird look, but if we are scaling it, like let's say to 1000 for example, and we are reducing the strength of the bump, you can see already how more subtle this look. Now one last thing I like to do, same as we did on the first method, is to add a bit of roughness to the face. So deciding where we want to add a bit more shininess and where we want it to be a bit more matte. So let me show you how we can easily do it by using the same method. We're going to duplicate those 3 nodes, putting them behind, erasing the face skin texture and adding a roughness texture. I'm choosing a white color and new image, and we're going to put this roughness into the roughness of the principal BSDF. And now if I'm going into my roughness texture, as you can see we have everything white. So if I'm taking a black color and I'm starting to paint on my face, and you can already see that it's adding like some lip gloss to our character. Don't forget, as usual, to save your image. I really can't say it enough. Remember to save your image. And if I'm saving it and then I go into my viewport shading, you can see that we have some shininess to it. And actually, this time is the last thing I'm adding. I like my face to have a bit more depth because right now I feel that everything is looking a bit flat. So for that, we can use an ambient occlusion. What it's going to do is that the ambient occlusion is going to make the areas that have natural shadows, like maybe in between the lips, on the nostril, between the ears and stuff like that. It's going to increase the shadow that you already have on your face, if that makes sense. So we add a color ramp to it, and we're going to duplicate this node, link the ambient occlusion to the color ramp, link the color ramp to the B of the multiply, and the first multiply we're going to put it on the A, and then this multiply back to the principal BSDF. And see that all of the areas that are flat are going to have way more shadows. Most of the time I like to turn it a bit more red just to give a bit more color to my face. And you can also see it way better when you add like some accessories or some hair to the face. It will create more shadow like on the forehead and stuff like that. And in my opinion, it automatically adds way more life to the mesh or the face or whatever you're trying to create. So basically this is the main nodes that I'm using. Sometimes I'm using more, sometimes I'm only using them. It really depends on what I'm trying to create, if it's a long project or not. But basically these are the main node I'm using when I'm painting on a character. You can screenshot the nodes if you want to, if it can help you on some of your projects. So this was how I paint my characters on Blender. I really hope those two methods will help you, and I hope this tutorial has helped you to understand a bit more how maybe nodes are working, how UV unwrap is working. Yeah, I really hope this tutorial was helpful. As usual, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them below. I will do my best to answer them. And don't forget to like this video or subscribe. It really does help me a lot. And I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye!